wipes it all out. Everything you've bled for, gone.
And, well, the most terrifying part of that whole scenario isn't even the lawsuit itself.
No, it's not.
It's that the entire collapse happens because of one simple, entirely avoidable paperwork mistake. It really is the ultimate financial nightmare for an entrepreneur.
It's just terrifying.
You spend your entire life reinforcing the walls of your business, but you leave the back door to your personal wealth completely wide open. And when the floor falls out, I mean, it falls out fast.
Which is exactly why today's deep dive is dedicated to, well, the ultimate wealth protection tool for South African entrepreneurs and families. We're talking about the trust.
Yes, a crucial topic.
We are synthesizing a massive stack of insights today from trust governance materials, including frameworks developed by Lumka Sturman. She's a highly specialized trust consultant right here in South Africa.
And she really knows her stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to break down the incredible positive power of having a trust, how to architect what is basically an asset protection fortress, and the hidden, almost psychological discipline required to make sure that fortress actually holds up when the taxman or a creditor comes knocking.
And I think we should clarify right away who this is actually for, because there's this, persistent myth that trusts are exclusively the domain of billionaires.
Right, like massive conglomerates or old money families.
Exactly. But the reality in South Africa is quite different.
Yeah, I think people hear trust fund and they immediately picture private islands and trust fund kids. But, looking through the sources, if you're a successful small business owner, a medical professional, an engineer, or really anyone generating substantial income and building assets, this legal structure is practically mandatory.
It really is. But before we get into how trusts fail, and our case studies show they fail spectacularly when mismanaged, we need to understand the mechanics of why they are so powerful when they work perfectly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start?
Well, entrepreneurs are, they're naturally wired for absolute control. They're used to treating their holding companies or their bank accounts as an extension of their own will.
Right. You want to buy a property? You just buy it.
You want to sell? You sell. Because when you own something in your personal capacity, you have total dominion over it.
But that dominion comes with a massive target on your back.
Precisely. Personal ownership means personal exposure. If your business is sued, or say a vendor goes under and takes you with them, your personal properties, your investments, they are all on the line to satisfy those creditors.
Wow, so everything is just mixed together in one big risk pool.
Exactly. And a trust fundamentally rewrites that dynamic by creating a legal separation between control and ownership. When a trust is properly established, the trust entity actually owns the assets.
Okay.
The trustees merely manage them on behalf of the beneficiaries. You're stripping away the personal ownership, which inherently, strips away the personal risk.
It makes me think of designing a ship with those watertight compartments. You have your operating business in one compartment, taking on the daily risks, the employees, the contracts, the market volatility.
That's a great analogy.
And if that compartment hits an iceberg and starts flooding, your family wealth is sitting in a completely different, legally sealed compartment.
Yeah.
The business can sink, but the family wealth stays completely dry.
That is the exact mechanism of the asset protection fortress. And the positive benefits of maintaining that seal are immense, particularly when we talk about tax efficiency in South Africa.
Taxes are always the big question.
Right. For instance, trusts are heavily utilized to minimize estate duty, which can, take a massive bite out of generational wealth.
Oh, huge bite.
And while trusts do face a punitive 45% flat tax rate on retained income, and an effective 36% capital gains tax rate, a properly governed trust uses what's called the conduit principle.
Okay, wait, let's hover on that conduit principle for a second.
Yeah.
Because looking at the materials, this is where the magic actually happens, legally speaking. How does that work in practice?
It's essentially a legal valve. If the trust earns income and just holds on to it, SARS hits it with that 45% tax rate.
Ouch.
Yeah. But if the trustees pass a formal resolution in the same tax year to distribute that income to a specific beneficiary, the income flows through the trust like a conduit and lands in the hands of the beneficiary. At that point, it's taxed at the beneficiary's marginal personal income tax rate, which is often significantly lower than 45%.
So you get the impenetrable vault for protection, plus a highly flexible valve to legally optimize your tax burden across the family. It sounds incredibly robust.
It is when done right.
But, I hear this theory, and then I look at our source material, and it's full of South African business owners who paid professionals to set up these trusts, transferred their properties, and still lost absolutely everything to creditors.
Right.
So wait, if I can pay a professional to set up this bulletproof trust, sign the legal deed, transfer my properties, if the legal framework is so bulletproof, how are these watertight doors blowing wide open?
They blow open because the courts and SARS do not just blindly accept your paperwork. They apply what is known in South African law as the reality test.
The reality test.
Yes, they look past the fancy deed of trust and they look past all the registration documents. They want to see how the trust actually behaves in the real world.
Meaning what exactly?
Is it functioning as an independent legal entity with collective decision-making? Or is it just an alter ego?
Alter ego, meaning it's just the founder wearing a fake mustache and a trench coat, pretending to be a trust, while still treating the assets as their own personal piggy bank.
That is exactly what an alter ego trust is. The founder transfers the assets into the trust on paper, but practically they still run it like their personal checking account.
So they just manage the money intuitively.
Yes, they make snap decisions, they move money around whenever they feel like it, and they never consult the other trustees. When that happens, the courts will literally pierce the veil of the trust.
Wow.
They'll declare it a sham, rule that the assets actually belong to the individual, and just hand them over to the creditors.
And the mechanism that triggers the collapse, the fatal error, is almost always the lack of documented meetings. It's the meeting nobody has.
Precisely.
I was reading the Maharaj family case study in our notes, and I mean, it is a masterclass in how intuition destroys legal protection. Can we break down the mechanics of what went wrong there?
The Maharaj case is a tragedy because they actually started off doing the right thing. They established a discretionary trust and successfully operated it for 15 years.
15 years. That's a long time to think you're safe.
Right. They transferred investment properties into it, rental income flowed in smoothly, and the trust seemed to be a total success. But Mr. Maharaj fell into the classic entrepreneur trap.
Let me guess. The patriarch syndrome.
Exactly. He was the patriarch. When family members needed money, he just intuitively transferred funds to them. He didn't consult the other trustees, he didn't hold meetings, and he certainly didn't draft resolutions or take minutes.
Because in his mind, it's his family and his money. Why does he need to sit in a boardroom to give his kid a living allowance?
Right. Psychologically, he still felt absolute ownership, but legally, he had given that up. So when a major business dispute escalated into litigation, his creditors came looking for assets to liquidate.
And they look straight at the trust.
They saw the trust and demanded to see its operational records. They asked for the meeting minutes.
And there was nothing. Just a 15-year paper trail of a guy treating a trust like his own wallet.
Nothing at all. The creditors argued in court that the trust was merely Mr. Maharaj's alter ego. Because there was zero evidence of collective decision-making or independent trustee judgment, the court agreed.
Oh, man.
The asset protection failed precisely when the iceberg hit and the family lost their investment properties.
It's staggering.
Right.
Decades of wealth building erased because of missing paperwork. And it wasn't just him either.
No, not at all.
The Van Niekerk case followed the exact same trajectory. He was the sole active trustee. He put his wife and brother on the paperwork just to satisfy the legal requirements, but they never actually participated in any decisions.
Just names on a page.
Exactly. And the court saw that he treated the trust properties as his own personal domain, pierced the trust, and the creditors took everything.
What both of those cases illustrate is the extreme danger of external threats. Creditors, litigation, liquidations. But if we connect this to the broader landscape of wealth protection, it's not just external battering rams that can smash your fortress.
No, there's the inside threat, too.
Internal rot can be just as destructive. If you ignore trust governance, you basically invite in the tax man and you invite in family warfare.
Yes, the twin nightmares of any wealth builder. SARS and the Thanksgiving table.
A deadly combination.
Let's pivot to the tax side first, because the both-a-family case study is enough to keep anyone up at night. How does an alter ego trust trigger a tax disaster?
Well, to understand the Botha case, we have to look at what trust meetings are actually designed to do. They serve three critical functions: decision-making, documentation, which is creating the actual legal evidence of those decisions, and family governance.
Okay, three pillars.
Yes. Now, in a discretionary trust, the trustees have the legal power, the discretion, to decide how much income goes to which beneficiary.
And that discretion is what unlocks that conduit principle we talked about earlier, right? Allowing the family to optimize their tax brackets.
Exactly. But SARS is acutely aware that people abuse this. In the Botha case, The family made predictable, mathematically equal distributions of trust income to various family members for 12 straight years.
Just clockwork, equal splits.
Clockwork. Everyone paid their lower individual tax rates, and everything seemed totally fine until SARS launched an audit.
Uh-oh.
Now, SARS didn't dispute that the trust existed. They simply asked for the meeting minutes to prove that the trustees had actually sat down and exercised their legal discretion to make those specific distributions each year.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like claiming a massive, say, million rand tax deduction for a business expense. And when SARS asks for the invoice, you tell them, I don't have an invoice, but I have a really strong gut feeling that the expense was valid.
They don't care about your gut feelings.
They really don't.
Yeah.
They want the paper trail that proves the legal mechanism was actually activated.
And Mr. Botha didn't have the paper trail. He just had a formula in his head that he ran on autopilot.
So what did SARS do?
Because there was no documentary evidence of genuine trustee deliberation and discretion, SARS ruled that the distributions were invalid. They disallowed them entirely.
Wait, meaning the income had legally never left the trust.
Exactly. SARS reassessed Mr. Botha at the punitive 45% marginal tax rate for multiple historical years. They handed the family a penalty bill exceeding 2 million rand.
2 million rand. For money they had already spent years ago, legally distributed in their minds, but completely invalidated because they didn't spend an hour writing up minutes.
It's brutal.
It is, but it's also entirely logical from SARS's perspective. If
Yeah.
you want the tax benefit, you have to do the administrative work.
That's exactly it. And, the administrative work isn't just to keep SARS happy. The documentation is the actual bedrock of family harmony.
Right, the Thanksgiving table issue.
The Pillay family case in our sources highlights the catastrophic psychological effects of bad governance.
That case is a masterclass in how an information vacuum destroys relationships. Walk us through what happened there.
So the Pillay patriarch passed away, leaving the family trust to his widow and his eldest son, who acted as the primary trustees. But the son inherited that exact same entrepreneurial flaw he operated on pure intuition.
Just like Maharaj.
Yes, he made unilateral, undocumented decisions about which sibling got financial support, who got business loans from the trust, and who didn't. He didn't hold formal meetings, he didn't share financial reports, and he didn't document his reasoning.
And human nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. When siblings don't have transparency, they don't assume benign neglect, they assume malice, they assume they're being robbed.
Precisely. Without formal meetings or minutes, suspicion just metastasized. The other siblings felt excluded and financially prejudiced.
Naturally.
The lack of documentation meant there was no objective truth to fall back on. It was just competing narratives, and the dispute inevitably ended up in the high court.
Which is incredibly expensive.
It cost the family hundreds of thousands of rands in legal fees. But the real tragedy was the collateral damage. It destroyed 3 generations of relationships. Siblings refused to speak to each other. Cousins became strangers.
All because they didn't have a structured environment to sit down and discuss the wealth. So if the paper trail is the literal lifeblood of the asset protection fortress and the glue holding the family together, how do you actually run a trust meeting that passes the reality test?
The anatomy of an effective trust meeting comes down to disciplined routine. First and foremost, consistency is far more important than frequency.
Meaning you can't just scramble when things go wrong.
You cannot just meet when there is a crisis or a massive windfall. You must meet annually at an absolute bare minimum, though quarterly is highly recommended to really maintain tight governance.
And what actually happens in that room? Because it can't just be a casual chat over coffee, right?
No, it has to be highly structured. You must have a formal agenda circulated beforehand. You need comprehensive financial reporting so the trustees know what assets they are actually managing.
Okay, agenda, financials.
Most importantly, you have to deliberate and pass formal resolutions. If you are distributing money to a beneficiary, the resolution must state exactly why, how much, and under what authority.
Right.
And finally, you need professionally prepared minutes that accurately reflect the debate and the decisions signed by all trustees while their memories are still fresh.
I want to dig into that phrase, all trustees, for a second, because a very common tactic I see in South Africa is families putting a family friend, or maybe their accountant, on the trust deed as the mandatory independent trustee.
Yes, very common.
But they never actually invite them to the meetings. They just email them a PDF once a year and say, hey, sign this resolution so we can file our taxes.
Mhm.
Why is that rubber stamping so lethal to the trust?
It's lethal because it makes the independence of the trust a complete fiction. It's like hiring a security guard for your vault, but the guard just sleeps at the front desk and hands the keys to anyone who asks.
Wow, that's a perfect way to picture it.
They check the compliance box of being physically present, but they offer zero actual protection. By law, trustees must act jointly and exercise independent judgment.
So if there's no actual pushback,
If your independent trustee is just rubber stamping the wishes of the dominant family member, a court will instantly recognize that it's an alter ego setup. An independent trustee must genuinely interrogate the financials, challenge assumptions, and exercise their own fiduciary judgment.
so they need to actually argue a bit.
Yes. That friction, that debate, is what proves to the outside world that the trust is real.
That makes perfect sense. The friction is the proof of life for the trust. But I imagine that kind of rigid, legalistic debate isn't really appropriate for every family member. Like, do the kids and grandchildren sit in on these high-stakes fiduciary meetings?
That's a crucial distinction. We really have to separate formal trustee meetings from family meetings.
Okay, how so?
Trustee meetings are purely fiduciary. They are legally binding, highly structured, and only the formally appointed trustees have a vote.
Right, the business side.
Family meetings, on the other hand, are consultative and educational. You bring in the adult beneficiaries to explain the trust's performance, outline the overarching strategy, and educate them on how wealth is preserved.
Which directly addresses that terrifying statistic from the research, the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves phenomenon.
Ah, yes.
The reality that a massive percentage of family wealth is completely eradicated by the third generation. The first generation bleeds to build it, the second generation coast on maintaining it, and the third generation, having never known the struggle, just completely squanders it.
It's a globally recognized curse, but the research is very clear on the antidote. Families who successfully retain wealth across multiple generations don't necessarily pick better stocks or have superior investment algorithms.
What do they do?
They survive because they have superior family governance. They use these consultative family meetings to pass down financial literacy. They draft family constitutions to build shared values and a sense of stewardship around the wealth.
Stewardship, I like that.
They teach the next generation that they aren't just lottery winners. They are custodians of a legacy. Good governance is the actual cure to the shirt sleeves curse.
I love that concept of stewardship. But let's bring this back to the reality of the South African business owner right now. We are talking about minute-taking, formal resolutions, navigating SARS compliance, ensuring the conduit principle is perfectly executed, and managing family constitutions.
It is a lot.
It sounds like a mountain of administrative burden. How does an entrepreneur who is already working, 60 to 70 hours a week just keeping their core business alive, realistically manage all of this without it becoming a second full-time job?
The blunt answer is they can't. And more importantly, they shouldn't try.
Really, just outsource it.
Expecting a brilliant entrepreneur to also be a meticulous trust compliance officer is a recipe for disaster. This is exactly why the most successful families don't go it alone. Partnering with a professional is how you bridge the gap between brilliant legal theory and practical bulletproof protection.
And when you look at the landscape of how to solve this in South Africa, you see professionals like Limke Sturman offering highly structured, systemized ways out of this trap.
Yes.
She is a specialized trust consultant and asset protection specialist, and her entire methodology is built around empowering business owners to formally separate their ownership from their risk without drowning in the paperwork themselves.
Exactly. And what stands out in her materials is that she quantifies the architecture of this protection very clearly.
Walk us through that. How does she structure it?
Well, for business owners who are just starting out and aren't sure if they even need a trust yet, she offers a foundation audit. It's an analytical deep dive into your personal versus business exposure risk, priced around 25,970 Rand.
Okay, so roughly 26 grand to know where you stand.
Yes, it tells you exactly where your fortress is currently weak.
Right, it's the diagnostic phase.
Yeah.
And if you realize you are exposed and need the full architecture, she runs an asset protection blueprint session.
That's the next step.
That's around 39,990 Rand, and it provides a fully customized trust and company structure, comprehensive asset flow mapping, and the exact SARS compliance guidance you need. It is quite literally the architectural blueprint for your family's specific fortress.
But the most crucial service she offers, especially when we consider the disasters of the Maharaj and both the families, is her annual maintenance package.
Ah, the ongoing work.
This is the governance engine. For 47,900 rand a year, her team acts as the ongoing fortress checkup. They handle the drafting of the annual trust resolutions, they ensure the SARS compliance is flawless, they manage beneficiary updates, and they actively monitor for the kind of red flags that trigger audits.
So what does this all mean? Let's contextualize that cost, because that's the most important analytical takeaway here.
Absolutely.
Spending roughly 47,000 Rand a year on trust maintenance might initially look like, a heavy administrative expense on a spreadsheet.
It sounds like a lot until you zoom out.
Right. But you have to weigh it against the cost of failure. When you contextualize that fee against the both the family's 2 million Rand SARS penalty just for lacking a paper trail.
Or Mr. Maharaj losing his entire life's work.
Exactly. Losing your property portfolio to a liquidated business. That maintenance fee is basically a rounding error. It's an investment in your peace of mind. You aren't paying for paperwork. You are paying an insurance premium.
It is the cost of keeping the guards awake and walking the walls of your fortress. A trust deed sitting in a drawer without active governance is just a piece of paper waiting to be shredded by a motivated creditor or an aggressive tax auditor.
100%.
Engaging a professional like Limca ensures that your trust passes the reality test with flying colors every single time.
If you are generating income, building a business, or acquiring assets in South Africa, you absolutely cannot afford to leave your safe door wide open just because you were too busy to write down your decisions.
You really can't.
You can actually explore her frameworks and book a consultation directly on her website at www.limcasterman.com. It is time to stop relying on a strong gut feeling as your receipt for the taxman.
It fundamentally requires a shift in identity. You have to transition from just being a wealth creator to becoming a wealth protector. And, those require two completely different skill sets.
That is the perfect way to summarize everything we've unpacked today. A properly structured trust is undeniably the ultimate asset protection fortress in South Africa.
Without a doubt.
It provides incredible tax optimization valves, it shields your family from the brutality of business liquidations, and it creates a seamless vehicle for generational succession.
There is always a but.
But that magic is entirely dependent on the legal separation being real. And the only way to prove to a court or to SARS that it is real is through regular, meticulously documented governance.
Yes.
Those meetings, the resolutions, and the professionals who manage them, they are the watertight doors that keep your family dry when the business hits an iceberg.
And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering question to ponder as you look at your own assets.
Let's hear it.
Think deeply about the actual legacy you are building right now. Are you merely passing down a collection of financial assets that are statistically likely to be lost to family disputes, external creditors, and punitive taxes?
The shirt sleeves curse.
Exactly. Or are you doing the harder work of passing down a culture of governance? Are you establishing the disciplines, the habits, and the frameworks that will teach your great-grandchildren exactly how to protect and grow the fortress you spent your life building?
Keep those watertight compartments sealed, everyone. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dives.